Video, we're going to look at the basics of a software called Git and a hosting platform called GitHub, which is commonly used among many web designers and web developers throughout the industry. So what Git is what is called a version control system. Version control means that if you have Git tracking your project, you can kind of take snapshots of moments in time throughout your workflow, and you can have those as either a backup or a place that you can go back to if you have broken something within your code base, or just a way to kind of put a milestone in your development flow as you go through creating a site. Git also supports a concept called branches, so you can have your main branch, which would be kind of the single source of truth for your site, the branch that you deploy out to the internet. And then you can make branches off of that main branch if you're going to work on new features, something similar to like a new homepage or setting up a new promotion type or something like that. Git is great for being able to keep different working copies of your software and code base in place and kind of documenting the changes that take place and who is responsible for those changes as you go through. Git is also used by big teams who work on websites to kind of make it so each developer or designer can work on a version of the site and not affect the version that is in production. So today we're going to look at how we get started with Git and GitHub, and we're going to go back to that website that we put together to kind of show how to put multi-site linking together. So all of you should have signed up for a GitHub account. They're free. And GitHub is where we're going to take the site that you're making and deploy it to. And using a feature of GitHub called GitHub Pages, we are going to actually be able to take the site that you're building on your local computer and make it a site that you can access from the internet. So let's look at how we do that. So here I have the site that we kind of stubbed out when we looked at how to do multi-page sites open here in Visual Studio Code. And Visual Studio Code has a lot of really great Git functionality built into it. In previous semesters I've taught, we've used a program called GitHub for Desktop. There's a lot of other GUIs that you can use to use Git. You can also do it from the terminal that is built into Mac OS or PowerShell that is built into Windows. But we're going to do it all through Visual Studio Code because it's nice to keep all of your workflow in one place. So with this project open, I have my project folder open in VS Code. I'm going to go to this little barbell looking thing in the left-hand toolbar. And as I hover over that, you can see that I get a little tooltip that tells me what this is, and it's source control. So using source control, we're going to what's called initialize a Git repository. A repository is an actual collection of your project files. And then we're going to set it up to be tracked by Git, and then we're going to push it up to GitHub, where we will set that up as as what is called a GitHub page. So let's look at how to do that. So first of all, we're going to click this, and when we open it, it says this folder currently open does not have a Git repository. So we need to get that set up. So I'm going to click on this button that says Initialize Repository. And now, with that, Git is already tracking our changes. You'll notice now I have a badge over the Git button in the toolbar with the number 6. And what that means is that I have 6 files that have changes in them from when I first started setting this project up. So now Git is going to be aware of any changes that I make to these files between what are called commits. So let's set up a commit. So I'm going to hover over the source control bar here, and then I'm going to find the command that says stage. Actually, it's not in this dropdown, so let's do this. If I hover over each of these, there's a little plus button. And now I have all of these 6 changes staged. So Git is tracking the current state of all of these different files. It's looking at each HTML file, it's looking at my CSS file, and it's captured a snapshot of these in their current state. So now that I have them staged, I'm going to write a commit message in here. And this is going to be a note to myself about what I did at this point, or what has changed about the files, or really anything that is relevant to the current state of my project. So since this is our first commit, our first kind of snapshot of where all these files are, we're going to follow a common convention and give the commit message of initial commit. And now that I have that message, I'm going to hit Command Enter on a Mac or Control Enter on a PC, and I have committed those. I have a new snapshot of this project. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and publish this to GitHub. So we're going to say push. And when we click push, we realize that we don't have any remote. We don't have a remote place for this code to go to. So I'm going to click on this button, and then that button that says add remote, it will open this up, and I can choose to add a remote from GitHub. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to allow it to sign into GitHub for me. Okay. So now that we have this open, it gives me the option of all of my different repositories that I have open. And currently, I don't have a repository for this. So let's go over to GitHub and create one. So I'm going to say, go into my repositories tab, and then I'm going to click on New. And I'm going to call this class test 2, because I've done this previously. And then in order to make this a GitHub page accessible repository, we need to add the following to the name of the repository, .github.io. And we're going to create it. And now that we have this, okay, now that we have our repository set up in GitHub, we need to tell our local project about this repository in GitHub, and we are going to designate this as what is called a remote repository. So we're going to create a connection between the files that live on our computer and this repository in GitHub. So now that we have this created, we need to do a couple things in our computer to make this work. So down here where it says push an existing repository from the command line, we're going to copy this line that says git remote add origin. So I'm going to highlight that and copy it, and then I'm going to come back to Visual Studio Code, and I am going to open up an integrated terminal. So an integrated terminal is a way for you to kind of write directly to your computer without using an interface. So in Visual Studio Code, if you're on a Mac, you'll hold Command Shift and then type P. And then if I use this all the time, so this is the first selection for me. But if you don't see this, start typing terminal and select the option that says create new integrated terminal. On Windows, it would be Control Shift P to get this to come up. So click that. And now I have a new window down here in Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to paste that bit of text that I copied from GitHub. And now I've set it up to where this repository that lives in GitHub is now going to be the place where if I push the changes that I make to this code, it's going to end up in this that says class test 2. So let's go ahead and push this. So I'm going to click on the 3-dot menu in the source control tab, and then I'm going to select push. And then we're going to say yes, we'd like to publish this branch. And we'll watch the progress over here in the top left corner as it makes its way up to GitHub. And then let's go into this repository in GitHub and take a look. So now that we go in here, we see all of our different files that we added. We have our 4 HTML pages. We have our CSS folder with our style.css. We can look at the code that we have. And now this is in a place where we can manage this from our computer. And if you were on a team, somebody could clone this or get a copy of this with the exact version history of everything that you've done onto their own computer and make their own contributions. So before we go any farther, let's look at how to set this up as a GitHub page. So we're going to go into settings for our repository. And then we're going to scroll down to this place that says GitHub pages. So we can click source, and we're going to pick the branch that we want to use for this GitHub page. So we're going to select the master branch. That will be the main branch for this. And then we get a confirmation message that our GitHub page's source has been saved. And if we look down here again, we'll see a message that says your site is ready to be published at this URL. And in my case, it's mattfrankjames.github.io/classtest2.github.io. So now that we've done that, we will check it out. And there we go. We follow the link, and this is the site that we had set up on our local computer, actually living at this URL on the internet. So now that we've done that, let's make a couple changes and push those up. So I'm going to come into the contact page, and I'm just going to add just a little bit here in the main just to demonstrate what a change would look like. So I'm going to type form, and we'll just make a really basic contact form here. So we'll say label for name, we'll say name, and then we'll make an input. Type equals text, and then we'll give this an ID attribute that matches the value of that for attribute in the label. So we'll say ID equals name, and now we'll save it. So you notice here in the left-hand side of my editor, I have this green line, and what that green line is telling me is that this is a new addition to this file. This is something that Git is tracking. It knows that this change has been made, but it doesn't have it committed yet to a specific commit. Now, if I were to edit something, if I were to change a line of text, like I'll change this lorem text to my name is Matt, I get a little bit different message here. Now, this blue line is just showing me, hey, here's some things that are just totally different. So you've added some stuff here, and we've changed some things here. And if I want to see what the actual difference is, I can hover over this in Visual Studio Code, click it, and it will pull up what is called a diff. So what is different about this from the last commit? So it's going to show me in green, this is new stuff that I've added. And then you'll notice here that it is tracking the fact that I deleted this lorem text and changed it to my name is Matt. So I have a visual representation of what has changed between the last commit and now. So if I'm happy with these changes, I can make a new commit. I'll come over to my source control tab, and I'll give myself a new commit message. And the commit message should be something that makes sense, something that indicates what you actually did. So I'll say added contact form. I'm going to hit Command Enter. Oh, I forgot to stage it, so let's go ahead and stage it. So if I hover over the file that has changed, I'm going to click the plus sign, and now this is staged, and now I can do the commit. So I'll say Command Enter, and I've got my second commit. And then I'm going to hover over the three-dot menu. I'm going to click Push, and this is going to push those changes up to my GitHub repository. So if I come in to GitHub, and we go look at our files again, we can see, if we go into contact, that now we have that form that's added. And we can also see that if we are in the overall repository, we can see that something was updated 37 seconds ago. And we see here that we have two commits. So if I click on that, it's going to show me my history. So it'll show me my initial commit, which we committed 13 minutes ago, and then the added contact form commit that we committed 1 minute ago. And if we want to see what's different about those, we can click on that commit, and it'll show me that same diff that was illustrated for me in VS Code. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and check out our GitHub page and see the change that got published. So I'm going to go here to the site that was published. Here we are. We've got our home page, got our about page, but if we go to contact page now and refresh, we'll see that we have that form that we added, and we can see that the additional text, "My name is Matt," has been added to that site. So that is how you set up a GitHub Pages website for free using Git and GitHub, and that is how you work with Git and GitHub in Visual Studio Code and get your site out on the internet.